everyone, this is Heba from my little journal, and today I'm excited to be back doing more of my Scrap Your Scraps videos. I haven't done these for ages and I really miss them. And if you're not familiar with my Scrap Your Scraps series, it's all about using your stash. I know I call it Scrap Your Scraps, but really it's all about just using what you have on hand and making sure that you use your products. So this video is all about using our little circle chipboards. I have loads of these. This is just a little bit of what I have. Again, I say this all the time. I'm not a hoarder. I like to use my product. And these circle chipboards are always a challenge for me. I'm not a circle person, if that makes sense. And I don't like to add too many circles on one spread. That's just me. And I always end up with a lot of these circle chipboards. I even have some in my have-to tray that I would like to use and put them on some spreads. So today I'm going to share with you a few different ways on how to use these, even though you're using a lot of them, but it's still not overwhelming, if that makes sense. So let's see how we end up doing and how many circles we end up using. But even if I end up using just a few, it's still good for me because I would really like to just use up as much as possible and not have all these circles sitting in my chipboard drawer not being used. So let's get to it. I want to share with you as many layouts as possible and how you can use these circle chipboards on your spreads. Okay, guys, let's scrap our scraps. I'm going to be going through my traveler's notebooks and finding the right pattern paper for my spread. For this spread, I'm trying to find something subtle. And I couldn't find anything subtle to go with all the photos that I'm going to be using on this spread. So I decided to keep it simple and just go with my grid paper. I have a few photos to document what I'm currently doing, loving, reading, all that good stuff. And I'm going to be using this stamp set from Close to My Heart. Now, I wanted to create like a timeline for my spread, and I decided to trim down one of my 12 by 12s. It had this really subtle black line going through the pattern, if that makes sense. So I just trimmed out one of those, and I'm going to add it to both sides of my spread. And this is kind of going to represent my timeline. So now that I have my line stuck down and trimmed off, I can go ahead and stick down my photos. So all I did with the photos, I made sure that I looked at my stamp set to have a stamp to represent the photo, if that makes sense. So if there was a stamp that said reading, I printed a photo of my book. If it had listening to, I printed a photo of what I'm listening to. I just made sure that I had a stamp to represent each photo. And some of these stamps, I'm going to stamp them on white paper. If it fits, I'm going to stamp it directly on my layout. A lot of these stamps were bigger than like that space between my photo and the edge of the layout. So I made sure to stamp them on white paper. That way I can trim them off and just use them as an embellishment for my spread. I don't know if I mentioned, but the stamp set is from Close to My Heart, and I believe it's called All Day, Every Day. And I wanted to also mention that a lot of times, if I don't find the right stamp for the photo I'm documenting, I will create my own. Like you guys saw a second ago, I just stamped two different stamps, and one of them I didn't even ink it up all the way, just so it would fit underneath my photo. And I think I ended up stamping Feeling This. So I combined two stamps to create the sentiment I needed. So I would definitely recommend to do that. That's what I love about having stamps and using stamps. Okay, let's start scrapping our chipboard circles. Like I said earlier, I have loads of chipboard circles and I really want to find a way to use them. And I thought this was the perfect way to use a bunch of them on one layout to create a timeline using my chipboard circles. I did start with the large ones, but I really wasn't feeling it. I felt like they were too big, too much for such a small layout. So I go for my smaller chipboard circles and they fit nicely, perfectly on my timeline. So I like it. I go ahead and stick them down. I'll even go back in and stick down all my stamp embellishments that I created. And once I do that, I'm gonna grab my number stickers to add numbers right in the center of each chipboard. So like I said earlier, it's gonna be like a timeline with 1 through 6. So I'm just gonna grab some black number stickers and add 1 through 6 on each and every chipboard circle. So sometimes you really don't have to add a lot to use your embellishments, just something like this. I ended up using 6 of my tiny chipboard circles, and that makes me happy. That means I used my product and I added it on a spread. It doesn't have to be using like 20 of them, if that makes sense. Anyways, I felt like I needed a little bit of more stamping. I had a lot of empty space in between the photos. So I stamped the banner that says all day, every day. I'm going to stamp 24/7 next to one of my photos. And I'm going to finish this off stamping another little stamp here right in between my photos. Again, I'm just trying to fill out some of the empty spaces, not all of them. But wherever I felt like it was needed, I went ahead and grabbed one of the stamps from the stamp set to add in that empty spot. Then I'm going to color in some of my stamped images and sentiments just to bring in some more color. And then I call our first layout done. I also want to share with you another layout where I used some of my chipboard circles in a different way. Hopefully they inspire you to use up some of your chipboards. So let's move on to our next layout. I am documenting my daughter making Arabic bread, and it was her first try and she did such a good job. So before I start using my scraps, I wanted to stamp my title, and I'm going bold because I have a lot of space and I think it would look really cool if I did. So I'm using the stamp set from Studio Calico. I forgot the name of the stamp set, but as always, I'll have everything linked in the description box for you. So I'm using some black ink to stamp out bread with this large alpha stamp, but I'm gonna go small with Arabic. So I'm gonna grab another Studio Calico alpha to stamp out Arabic right above bread. And then I have my title all done and cute and bold. I can kind of build off of my title. Okay, now that we're done with my title, I can go ahead and stick down my photos. So for my first layout, I shared with you how just using a few chipboard circles on your spread, you're still using your chipboard, but you're not overwhelming your spread with chipboard, right? And we're keeping it simple. For the second spread, I wanted to share with you how to use more of your circle chipboards, but not overwhelm your spread, if that makes sense. So I started with my 1, 2, 3 little mini chipboards. That's where I'm going to end up using or adding my journaling. And now I'm just going through my circle chipboards and adding whatever goes with my spread. So some of them had like the KitchenAid, blender, I think there was utensils as well. And I used those, I made sure to use them. Another had March, so I went ahead and used that in black. I thought it was perfect. It went really well with my title. And now I'm creating little clusters around my photos using my circle chipboards. I didn't stick anything down yet, just a few, the ones that, doesn't have the backing and were sticky already. And whatever I was able to use and not stick down yet, I kept as is because I knew I would move things around until I was happy with how everything looked. Like you can see here, I even used half circle chipboards, which I love, and they're perfect to add to the edge of your photo. And here again, I'm moving my chipboards around, which is perfect because nothing's stuck down yet. I went ahead and typed out my journaling on some transparency paper. I'm going to go ahead and stick that down as well. Again, I'm using the 1, 2, 3 chipboards to add to my journaling. And once I stick them down, I'll actually stick down my 1, 2, 3, but I'll come back later and change it because I felt like I added them too far from my journaling, if that makes sense. But I'll fix that later. And once I stick those down, I start sticking down my chipboard circles. I don't overthink it. I like the clustering. I like the color, and I'm just going to go for it. I'm not going to let you watch me stick down every single circle because it's tedious work. It took me a bit of time, but I wanted to share with you how easy and simple it is to add color using your chipboard circles. And even if you had squares or banners, this still works. But anyways, I want to mute things down, and my go-to is using my black word stickers. So I'm going to add a few here and there. And while I was doing that, I felt like that top right corner looked pretty empty. And some of my circle chipboards needed a little bit of stamping. So I'm going to grab my stamp sets here. I believe this is from Everyday Explorers. And I'm going to use some of those food stamps to add to my little chipboards. I just go with bread because I'm documenting bread. And I'm going to grab the block stamps from the same stamp set to add a few word stamps in that right hand corner. That way it fills it out and it all blends in nicely and it flows nicely. Anyways, you guys, that's about it. I hope I was able to inspire you to use your circle chipboards in different ways on your spreads. And if you do, don't forget to tag me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is always linked in the description box. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up. And if you are new to my channel, please consider subscribing. And I hope to see you guys very soon. Bye.